Welcome to our contribution to JPIC. And I'd like to welcome you to Bishop Edwin Regan. Now, Bishop Regan, for 17 years, was the Bishop of Wrexham in North Wales. And so we are going to look forward to listening to what he has to say about the joy of creation. Welcome, Bishop Edwin. So, Bishop Edwin, I see that you've chosen a very interesting title for your talk today, coming from Psalm 99. Cry out with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. And of course, it's a psalm that's often recited on a Sunday, isn't it, as a song of praise. What led you to choose those inspired words from the Psalms?
It was a couple of years ago that I had to preach a special sermon, and it was on the occasion of my Diamond Jubilee as a priest. Now, most of my homilies, I suppose most people would have forgotten them. I've certainly forgotten them myself. But this particular one, somehow it struck a chord. And people were very affirmative. And it reached places I was surprised, because it went further than just the people listening to it. And the reason why I think it did strike a chord like that was because I decided I'd speak on the meaning of life. What would Jesus ask us to emphasize if he were here now talking with us? We might say, understanding that we are loved, understanding that we are called to love, understanding of a meaning to life, our obligation to take part in God's plan. All those answers are absolutely true, 10 out of 10. But what I hit upon was people needed joy, needed a feeling of joy in the Lord, because the joy of the Lord is our strength. And my homily was based on joy.
And of course, in the world today, there isn't a lot of joy, is there? Sometimes there are places where joy isn't being experienced in the way that we would hope, obviously. And how do you reconcile that situation with that beautiful interpretation of joy, which was at the heart of your sermon?
This is the challenge of being a Christian. Over 200 years ago, Henry Thoreau, he was an American thinker, and he said, the greater mass of people spend their lives in quiet desperation. And whether it's true then or not, I don't know, but I think it's certainly true today. You were quite right, that joy is in short supply. But how many joyful people do I really know? I'm not quite so sure. But on the other hand, you see, I'm not talking about that bubbly, sentimental kind of joy, that surface joy. People like that, who are always cheerful. Well, I have sympathy with Goering sometimes, reaching for his revolver when somebody mentions culture.
Yes.
I feel like almost doing the same thing.
Yeah. So this is a different joy. You're talking about an inner joy, a different joy.
This is a far deeper joy. This is a joy that can face all the problems. Perhaps it's a joy that can realize where the depths of the problems really lie in our moving away from the Lord. Because the only answer is, as far as I can see, is the Christian vision. The joy must spring from God's understanding of the world. We have to try and develop a Christian vision. We have to try and develop life as the Lord sees it. Here's a very interesting quotation I'd like to share with you. In 1902, Benedictine monk wrote this: "It's a duty of each one of us as Christians to be joyful. It's a remarkable religion, our religion, in which joy is a precept, which the commandment is to be happy, in which cheerfulness is a duty." Now, those are quite striking words.
They are.
They are the command of the Lord to us, be joyful in the Lord. But that demands we have a holistic view of life. It's very interesting that today we are more in contact with what's happening in the world than ever before. 24/7. Didn't happen before. In the last couple of generations anyway. But now, even though we're so interconnected in that way, we can feel so disconnected. We can feel so cut off from everything. Why? Because I think we're lacking that sense of vision, that Catholic way of looking at life, which I say is trying to look at life through the lens which God looks at it, which is as God's creation. I'd like to come back to that later on. But we as Catholics, as Christians, we can get very involved in certain projects, certain moral issues. And the danger is we concentrate on those that have nothing else mattered. Now Pope Francis has something very clear to say about that in his encyclical. Here it is, just people have a view of it. Gaudete exultate, which means rejoice and be happy, be glad. This is what he says. Quite interesting. Our defense of the unborn needs to be clear, firm and passionate. For at stake is the dignity of a human life, which always demands love for each person, regardless of their state of development. That's true. Equally sacred, however, and this is the point, are the lives of the poor, the already born, the destitute, the abandoned, the underprivileged, the vulnerable, the infirm and elderly exposed to covert euthanasia, the victims of human trafficking, new forms of slavery, and every form of rejection. All that is part of the seamless robe of life and demands our respect. The only thing that counts for some, the Pope says with a certain amount of sadness, the only thing that counts for some is one particular ethical issue or cause that they must defend. Now he's right, I suppose, we have certain preferences, but we must always keep in mind the whole robe, the whole seamless robe, and not to say, my way of looking at it is the only way. We have to have a Catholic vision. That's so important. Again, the Pope hammers this home in Fratelli Tutti, brothers and sisters. And he's talking about a very sensitive topic now. Migration, he says, more than ever before, will play a pivotal role in the future of our world. How do we look upon migration? At present, however, migration is affected by the loss of that sense of responsibility for our brothers and sisters on which every civil society is based. Europe, for example, seriously risks taking this path. The Pope is talking to us in Europe. Nevertheless, aided by its great cultural and religious heritage, it is a means to defend the centrality of the human person and to find the right balance between its twofold responsibility to protect the rights of its citizens and to assure assistance and acceptance to migrants. Those are challenging words.
They are, particularly for politicians and those who are appealing to people's self-interest and that sense of being threatened by those from outside. So the Pope is very, very challenging. So you talk about this inner joy. So for those who find it very difficult to appreciate that inner joy, how would you say we should respond? How could we encourage people to have that vision of inner joy when it's so challenging? Is that something that connects a lot with faith and with belief, or is it something else?
It's contagious, and it's a very good disease to have.
Yes.
Because the only way we can spread joy is being joyful ourselves.
Yes.
And
through example. Really.
Yeah, through example, by being joyful, by being interested in others, by being the kind of person that feels at home in the universe. You see, do we look upon ourselves as part of nature or part of creation? That's a very important question. Because if we think of ourselves as part of nature, then our faith is something added on to it. But creation, that means it comes from a loving God. Now, we're not going to persuade people because sometimes they don't want to see. None so blind as though they want to see, but we have to keep witnessing ourselves. And something else I've come to realize, we have to continually to make sure we are not caught up in this selfish way of looking at things. Because I've seen it myself, that I can start saying, why are they coming here? This is our country. We have no rights, no obligations to them. They've no right to be here. Forgetting we live in a common home. We live in a common home. The world doesn't belong to me, doesn't belong to you, it belongs to God. And we are here as stewards. May I quote Francis again? Because this is a kind of vision we must try to achieve ourselves. And I come upon this later through prayer. But this is what he says. Listen to these words, far better than mine. He says, the universe which unfolds in God, that's it, the universe unfolding in God, and God fills it completely. God is with us at this moment. You know, he's not out there. We're not talking about him as if he weren't here. God is present in this communication. God is furthering this communication. God brought it about, giving the idea whoever thought of it first of all. God is here. And God fills the universe completely. Hence, there's a mystical meaning to be found in a leaf. The leaves around us, in a mountain trail, in a dewdrop, in a poor person's face. The ideal is not to only pass from the exterior to the interior, to discover the action of God in the soul, that's good, but to discover God in all things. So that is first of all our responsibility, and then when we've discovered that secret, to keep going back to it in order that the way we live, our enthusiasm for life will catch others and they say, they've got something, I want to have a bit of that.
So it's a form of evangelization in a sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's spreading the good news. Absolutely. And it's the way we live that counts. I mean, there are all kinds of forces going against this. I think sometimes our own scriptures have not been very useful. For instance, in Genesis 1:28, God says to mankind, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule it, master it. Oh my gosh, those words are very, very dangerous.
That's what the Amazon rainforest is all about, isn't it? Doing that to it.
Subdue the world, use it like that. And unfortunately, I think that was the understanding for too long, particularly in the age of enlightenment, when we started to discover the riches of the world. Now we understand much more clearly that those words mean we are here to steward God's creation, to take care of it in God's name. It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to God. And that's true of private property. I mean, who owns this bungalow? Well, the diocese owns it, does it? Because how can say, this is my property, nobody else can come here? Everything has a social consequence. What we own in trust. And so we have a right to what we have, a right to use it, but not as if all other people are excluded from the goods of the earth. I mean, the posh title is a universal destination of goods. In other words, God made the world for humanity, not just for a select few. I think in our Catholic liturgy, we got a beautiful preface. It's the 5th preface on a Sunday. It says, and this is part of the preface, as you know, it takes place in the Mass, just before, well, at the start of the Eucharistic prayer. Lord, Holy Father, Almighty and Eternal God, you set humanity over the whole world in all its wonder, to rule in your name over all you have made, and forever praise you in your mighty works. Yes, Dennis, to rule over God's world, not to rape it. And it's so important we do it in God's name. That's absolutely essential.